Good evening and welcome to Poplar Grove Elementary. As Mr. Blair said, if you will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Tonight we have no recognitions or good news awards. We will pick those up at next month's meeting. So public input, there's a podium to my right. If there is anyone here for public input, podium is there and it is now open. Seeing no one, we will declare that public input session is now closed. For our reports, presentations, and discussions, Dr. Decker, our Director of Teaching and Learning, is unavailable for tonight, so we will, hopefully you read that report in your package, and as always, a great report, so we will hear from her at another time. So we'll move on to Dr. Esslinger.
Good evening, everyone. We have our monthly construction report in your board packet, and I'll just open the floor up to any questions, clarifications. Hope you enjoyed the latest video montage of the very fast workers moving along, but I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you may have, and if not, I can take your question and get an answer back to you.
Questions for Dr. Esslinger? We'll move on to approval of the board agenda. A motion?
Motion to approve the board agenda.
A second?
I second.
All in favor? Approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Move. Is that a second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? We are approved. All right, business before the board. First item is employment action related to Jessica Shervinack. So at this time, the chair will recognize Dr. David Snowden, our Director of Schools. Dr. Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At its meeting held on June the 10th of 2024, the Franklin Special School District Board of Education heard charges for dismissal that were recommended for Jessica Shervinack, a tenured teacher in the district. After consideration of the charges, the board voted that if any of the charges were true, then dismissal as a tenured teacher would be warranted. Pursuant to Tennessee law, Ms. Shervinack was notified of the charges, was provided with a copy of her rights, and was informed that should she desire a hearing on the recommendation for dismissal, then she should request a hearing within 30 days. This notice was sent by email to her last known personal email address and by both regular first-class mail and first-class certified mail, return receipt requested. Leading up to the presentation of charges for dismissal, staff of the school district attempted to contact Ms. Shervinack on several occasions without success. As of the date of tonight's meeting, no return contact has been received from Ms. Shervinack and no request for a hearing has been filed. It is therefore the recommendation of the Director of Schools in consultation with the attorney for the board that Ms. Shervinack be formally dismissed from service as a tenured teacher.
Thank you, sir. Members of the board, Dr. Snowden has recommended the dismissal of Jessica Shervinack from service as a tenured teacher in this school system. This follows a failure to request a hearing on the charges that were presented to this board on June 10th, 2024. Formal action on this matter. We need a motion to approve the recommendation, a second, and then we also need a roll call vote. So is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reset the record.
Mr. Stillings has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Bell has made a second. Is there discussion on this matter? If there is no discussion, then we will have a roll call vote. Ms. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Stillings?
Yes.
Mr. Blair, yes. Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Townsend?
Yes.
We're all in agreement. The motion having received the necessary statutory vote is passed. Ms. Shervanack is formally dismissed from service effective immediately. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, Dr. Snowden.
Item number 2 is 2024-2025 FSSD budget. The final general purpose and debt service budget documents, including a summary and complete revenues and expenditures, have been provided to you for review. During our work sessions, much was accomplished through great questions and discussion by you as board members. We're extremely appreciative of your diligence during this budgetary process. I would also like to recognize the work done by Dr. Esslinger, the finance people, the finance personnel rather, and all the school and district administrators and supervisors during this process. We always appreciate the board's continued focus on providing FSSD employees with an extremely competitive and quality compensation package to recognize their dedication to our students and families. The proposed 24-25 budget provides a 4% cost of living increase for all FSSD employees. The proposed budget also represents an approximate 6.3% increase from the 23-24 budget. As was also discussed in the budget work sessions, most of the increase in expenditures are related to the 4% COLA plus the step increase for all employees, inclusive of those at the top of the salary scale. And as we've said before, it's not the step increase is not equivalent to 2%. It goes anywhere from approximately 1.5% up to even as close to 3 or maybe even 3, Dr. Esslinger. Is that?
3.
Yeah. So if you look at the cost of living increase of 4% plus the approximate 2%, then it's a 6% really increase for all of our employees. As was discussed in our budget work session, most of the increase in expenditures that I mentioned of 6.3% are related to the 4% cost of living increase plus the step increase for all employees, the increased cost of health dental insurance premiums, 5 additional personnel positions to meet the overall needs of students, and the overall impact of economic inflation. Additionally, and we don't talk about this a lot, and I don't think we mentioned this at all during our budget work sessions, but it is important. It's not as important now because we're in the hold harmless step down process of the new TISA formula, but the fiscal capacity of Williamson County continues to impact both our budget and the Williamson County Schools budget. And if you recall, fiscal capacity means the ability for the population of a county to pay for educational services. And at this point, the TISA formula uses a combination of a SIEBR model, which uses a mathematical model to determine the fiscal capacity, as well as the TASER model, which uses a multiple regression statistical model to determine that. So what that means is that Williamson County, based on many of you heard today about the assessed valuation of Williamson County and how property continues to escalate as far as value. So that's going to continue to impact the budgets of both school districts as we move forward in the years to come. So it's the ability, that fiscal model, our fiscal capacity represents the ability for citizens to pay for education, and then the other school districts, other counties, maybe that do not have that high of fiscal capacity, then they get more state funding than those counties and school districts that have that fiscal capacity. So this proposed budget would necessitate an 11-cent increase in the property tax for owners within the FSSD boundaries. We understand the importance of fiscal responsibility by you as a board and for all of us as we continue to focus on maintaining the highest quality educational opportunities for all of our students. We believe this proposed budget is what we need to maintain the quality we all expect. In addition, through the budgetary process, we presented and discussed budgets for federal, capital projects, food and culinary services, and MAC. The administration recommends approval of all the budgets presented during the budgetary process.
Thank you, Dr. Snowden. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the budget.
Ms. Bell, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Newman, is there a discussion? Seeing no discussion, let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Townsend?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Blair, yes. Mr. Stillings?
Yes.
Ms. Barker?
Yes.
We are approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now that the budget has been approved, we have to set a tax rate for the 24-25 school year. A tax rate needs to be set forth for both the general purpose and the debt service budgets. The tax rate to fund the proposed budget is 0.6111 cents for the general purpose and 0.2040 cents for the debt service, for a total of 0.8151. This rate, as we said earlier, is an 11-cent increase over the previous budget and the previous tax rate. The administration recommends approval of the 24-25 FSSD tax rate as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the tax rate.
All right, Ms. Bell, is there a second?
Yeah, why not?
Mr. Stillings? Is there a discussion?
I just want to thank Dr. Esslinger for all of your explanations along the way. I should have said that before the last vote, but I know I tend to ask a lot of questions and ask you to explain it several times, so I appreciate it.
I enjoy doing it.
Oh, good.
I truly do. I have very good students, and I enjoy teaching at the heart of it.
All right, any other discussion? If not, Mr. Townsend?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Mr. Blair, yes. Mr. Stillings?
Yes.
Ms. Barker?
Yes.
We are approved. Director of Schools?
Just, go ahead, Kevin. If I could, I probably should have said it after the previous vote. Since I am married to someone who works for the FSD, I need to make sure I announce that my decision to vote the way I voted in favor of the budget had nothing to do with the fact that she works for the city. So, as a city, works for the school system.
You that work
You work for the city.
And for 7 years, I've made the same announcement. I no longer have that conflict, as she has retired, so I'm good to go.
All right.
And let me say about the questions, we deal with this the year round. Dr. Esslinger's, even though there's a certain part of the year that's he devotes more time to the budget process, and we all do. You ladies and gentlemen only do it, even though you've been on the board for many years and you've been through the process. You don't deal with this every day or every week or every month. So we expect and we want you to ask questions, because that's the only way that you're going to have clarity and you feel comfortable with voting and supporting a budget once we get to this point. So please don't hesitate to ask questions.
Thank you for that, sir. All right. Item number 4, Director of Schools Annual Performance Goals. Mr. Townsend.
Yes, hopefully everyone has had a chance to review the revised performance goals that we worked on from the workshop last time. I know it's been a few weeks, but what you have in front of you captures quite a few changes. And I say quite a few changes. I don't think it significantly has changed from what we've done in the past, but just there was a lot of wordsmithing that needed to occur. So I think we have a document that I would hope you would all join me in approving. So with that, I'm going to say, and as you recall, the modifications are only on page 1, 2, and 3, and actually, and 4 to the points. Well, if you consider the front page itself, 1 through 3, total of 4 pages. So with that, I make a motion that we accept this revised annual performance goals for Dr. Snowden for the year 2024 through 2025.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? Newman, is there a discussion?
I have a question for Dr. Snowden. Given you've reviewed these, I'm assuming, and are they acceptable to you and meet what you would consider to be fair?
They are. Thank you for asking.
Thank you to all who had a part in this refresh. It's very nice.
I think the board did a lot of great work at the work session, and then the wordsmithing, I think Dr. Decker helped us out quite a bit with that as well. So yes, I thank everybody.
All right. Thank you.
And of course, Carol.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All right, let's roll call vote. Ms. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Stillings?
Yes.
Mr. Blair, yes. Ms. Bell?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Townsend?
Yes.
All right, we're approved. Thank you, sir. Dr. Snowden? Policy?
Yes, as we dive into the numerous policy revisions, you can tell that the legislature was quite busy this past session. I think approximately 350 bills related to education were filed. Thankfully, not all of them made it to a vote. Some of them died. But the result of the ones that did pass have a direct correlation on the policies we're going to ask you to approve tonight, either on first reading or first reading and waive second reading. And then there is one that deals with our HR that we are definitely requesting to waive second reading and adopt it as we move further into the agenda. The first item, policy revision, is visitors to school district property security management 1.501. This is a first reading. Public Chapter 810 requires boards to adopt a code of conduct for each school in the district. This code must be placed where visitors can see it and must also contain the name and board of professional responsibility of the attorney who reviewed it, which is Mr. Cagle. TSBA has updated their model policy to reflect the new requirements, which is incorporated in our revisions. Additionally, TSBA recommends that boards work closely with their attorney to develop a code of conduct for each school to meet the requirements of the new law. We have worked closely with our board attorney to develop the code of conduct that's required by this law, and we are recommending approval of the first reading as presented. Also, you have a copy of the code of conduct that has been developed. School leaders and district leaders will receive a copy tomorrow, and they will receive, we've made copies for all the schools because part of that law is, as a requirement, is we have to give parents a copy of that code of conduct.
All right, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading.
I'll second.
Is there a discussion?
And then I have one. Is this one that you need waived for second reading so that we can open school with it?
It's not absolutely necessary, but I mean, it is the law, and we have to do it, and we do plan to pass out that code of conduct early in the school year. It makes no sense for us to pass it out later in the year. So it would be good to go ahead and waive the second reading. There's not any debate that we have to do it. So this would be a good opportunity, I think, to waive second reading.
I'll modify my motion to waive second reading. I did have a question. Does this document have to be posted, or are we just going to be able to give it to parents?
We have to post it. We have that, and then we give that to parents.
So we have to physically post it in each school? It's pretty lengthy.
No, we don't have to we have to post that we have a
Didn't
code.
have one, okay. Just clarifying that.
And I'll second that with the modification.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? All right. Thank you, sir.
Item number 6, policy revision, school calendar 1.800. This is also a first reading. A recent change to state law may require some districts to close on the day of the presidential election and primary, or presidential election primary. TSBA has added language to their model policy 1.800 to highlight this consideration in the school calendar adoption process. As you recall, we now have no schools that are utilized as polling location. Ours is updated to reflect the recommended changes. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented, and this also, it's not necessary to waive, but it is a law, and it complies with the new state law.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
Move to approve on first, waive on second.
All right.
Second.
There's a second. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Item 7, policy revision, surplus property sales. This is also a first reading. Previously, legal notices were required to be placed in newspapers. Under a new change to state law, these notices are required to be placed online on a news and information website. TSBA has added language to policy 2.403 to align with this new requirement. Also, I might add that in talking to Jennifer White in the policy department at TSBA, and they've had this question from several people, several school districts. When it comes to news and information website, their interpretation after talking to the legislative attorneys is that the newspaper that has an online if a newspaper has an online presence, then that is considered to be meet the requirement for a news and information website, if that makes sense. We recommend approval of first reading.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is this one where we can waive the second reading?
Yeah.
Okay,
We can.
Yeah. Move to approve on first, waive on second.
a second.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you.
Item 8, policy revision, bids and quotations, 2.806. This is also a first reading. Several changes to state law impacts policies on bids and quotations. In addition to the legal requirement to post the information online, as described above, the bidding threshold has been changed, and there is a new exemption from competitive bidding. Public Chapter 793 states that beginning July the 1st, legal notices that are required to be published in the newspaper of general circulation should now also be published on a news and information website that has a URL and outlines the standards pertaining to that website, which we alluded to in the previous policy. Public Chapter 513 removes the $10,000 threshold and standardizes bidding thresholds at $25,000 or $50,000 for boards that do not follow the procedures of their local funding body. Please note that $50,000 is available to boards with a centralized purchasing authority, and the $25,000 applies if there is no centralized purchasing. We're already utilizing the $50,000 threshold. Additionally, Public Chapter 661 exempts bulk fuel purchases that exceed bidding limits from bidding requirements. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, sorry, were you going to?
You're fine.
Okay. Waiving, second, please.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Item number 9, policy revision, emergency preparedness plan 3.202, also a first reading. Public Chapter 563 requires districts to develop procedures on how staff will determine the cause of fire alarm activation, including the potential for an active shooter event. TSBA has included a provision on this requirement in their model policy and will include a model template in their upcoming administrative procedure update. As the contents of the procedure will differ across districts, TSBA recommends working with local law enforcement and with local fire department to develop the specifics of individual procedures. Selby Glass is currently working with our local city and county agencies to develop those specific procedures, and we will be ready they should be ready, obviously, if it, by next week or at no later than the next week, so that we can make sure our faculty members know what the procedures are when they hear a fire alarm. This will also require an update to our district safety plan. We recommend approval of the first reading, and this would also be appropriate to waive second reading if the board so desires.
Motion?
Move to approve on first, waive on second.
I second.
There's a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I just had a question, because I was reading through it. The only updated part to me looks like we're trying to identify the cause of a fire alarm if it's not a fire or a drill. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If
We
you're,
don't have that procedure in place yet, like if a fire alarm just happens to go off randomly.
normally our fire alarms we announce, but there are situations if somebody were to pull a fire alarm and it wasn't announced, then people could automatically assume that there is a fire and that you should be evacuating. So this will help for people to understand and to, I don't know what the procedure is going to look like.
Okay.
But in other words, you're not going to just run out of the classroom automatically. There'll be some procedures or protocols in place so that people will seek to find out where a fire is and whether there is a real need to evacuate.
That makes sense.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Item 10, policy revision security 3.205. This is also a first reading. New state law, public chapter 882, requires that principals immediately report certain types of assaults and certain acts of vandalism to local law enforcement and the director of schools. TSBA has updated their model policy to include this requirement, and we recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve on first, waive on second.
I'll second that.
And there's a second. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 11, a policy revision, student transportation management 3.400. I will say in this particular policy, because of a question, and I'll mention it later, that I would not recommend waiving second reading until hopefully we have a little more guidance. TSBA has provided language in their model policy regarding a recent change in legislation found in Public Chapter 122, which went into effect July the 1st, 2024. This new state law requires boards to issue certificates to bus drivers. These certificates may be revoked if the bus driver is no longer fit to operate a school bus. In addition, Public Chapter 548 requires notices to be posted on buses stating that only authorized individuals may enter. Other revisions remove duplicate language. For example, page 2, paragraph beginning with line 34 is captured in page 1, in page 1, first paragraph, and also bringing the policy up to current practice. The question we already issue certificates. We provided that information in an email late this afternoon to you if you haven't already noticed that email. The one thing that we are not clear about is how to determine the mental evaluation part. This is the form that we currently use, and is from the federal government, does measure the physical capacity of someone driving a bus, but it doesn't measure mental capacity nor moral capacity. I don't know who the moral police is going to be, but I guess someone will tell us eventually. So with that unknown, I would say at this point, and it does say annually, so it's not like we have to, we've already done the physical part, but then we'll need more information to do the mental and the moral requirement. So we recommend approval of the first reading tonight.
Sir, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Townsend, second.
I'll second that.
Ms. Bell, questions, discussion?
Question, was the issuance of a certificate part of the prior or current policy?
I don't remember, Mr. Alexander, what have we done with those certificates in the past?
There's always been an annual medical certificate for every driver. And then for new hires who are just getting their initial, what is called the S endorsement in Tennessee, school bus endorsement. For people who are getting that initially or who have previously had that and let it lapse, we have issued what's called a 2C form from the Department of Safety. And that is a screening tool that lets the Department of Safety know before they begin the process of issuing school bus credentials that some background and some level of vetting has taken place by the district.
Okay. Because they're kind of not very clear on what this purpose of a certificate is. I mean, is it a good news award? What is it? So, yeah, I agree with passing it on first and just waiting for more clarification.
And I'll say, in terms of the mental and moral aspect, we're going to find out, but I'm assuming we can't attest to it, we can't judge it, but we just assume everyone's fine until there's something that happens to make us question that, would be my assumption, unless they're really going to give us a battery of tests to test people. So anyway, I just think that it's going to be, we'll know hopefully in a month, but it's probably, we should assume they're fine until something happens, makes us change our minds.
I've not seen a test for, I know there are mental acuity tests, but I've not seen a moral test yet, a test for morals. I don't know, maybe there's one out there.
I'm sure they exist.
Okay.
When we're looking to clarify this, can we get clarification on, because I'm thinking what Tim said, it just says they're going to get a certificate prior to operating a school bus, but it doesn't really say, like shows they've passed the training, shows they've undergone safety training. It doesn't really say much, so maybe we can get some clarification on, or just if that's all they need, what you said earlier, that they get the form, that would be enough, but that seems vague to me. Maybe we can clarify what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, we'll work to clarify those questions.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not, all in favor? Thank you.
Item number 12, policy revision, interscholastic athletics, 4.301. This is a first reading. Per a new state law, public chapter 639, homeschool students will be able to participate in interscholastic athletics in schools that are not members of TSSAA or TMSAA. Essentially, this will allow homeschool student participation in all sports. We recommend the approval of first reading as presented, and I would also say that this would be appropriate for waiving of second reading.
So, is there a motion?
Motion to approve on first and waive second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Bell. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 13, policy revision, library materials, 4.403, first reading. Public Chapter 782 revises the Age-Appropriate Materials Act of 2022. These changes to state law establish standards for immediate removal of material if it contains content defined in TCA 3917-901. Additionally, if the board does not take action on feedback within 60 days, the student, parent, guardian, or employee who submitted the feedback may appeal to the State Textbook and Instructional Materials Quality Commission to evaluate the material. And I will say that our media specialists / librarians do a great job of really vetting the books that we purchase to go into libraries. Now, there's no absolute on any of that selection process, but I think they do, I just wanted to give them a shout out. They do a great job in the selection process. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented, and this will also be appropriate for waiving second reading if the board chooses to do so.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve first, waive second.
Is there a second?
Second.
You have a second? Ms. Newman?
No, it can be, no, Alicia second.
Ms. Barker, thank you. All right, discussion.
The age-appropriate material and that whole discussion is a politically charged discussion. Should we pass this on first and waive the second, or should we give the consideration over the time that it probably deserves? I'm just throwing that out there for an extended discussion if the board feels it's warranted, but I think my personal preference, unless there's some compelling reason that we need to pass this for immediate execution, would be to take some time and just let the process play out.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tim. I think if I was a parent, I'd prefer to, yeah, we can pass it today, but have it be read again before we pass it. So I too would be in favor of this 2 readings.
Okay, well, I'm happy to retract and say that I would love to pass on
Just
first.
pass on first. You second? All right. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Item 14, policy revision, class size ratios 4.410, first reading. The names of the policy has been updated from class size to better describe the contents, effective July the 1st, 2024. Public Chapter 712 modifies class size requirements to allow greater flexibility in CTE, career and technical education class sizes for grades 6 through 8. TSBA has provided language in their model policy to reflect this change, which has been added to this revision. We recommend approval of first reading as presented.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve on first, waiving second.
Second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
And do we comply already with the requirements in the new policy?
Yes, of course, our CTE, basically, we're just getting started with CTE, but that does give us flexibility for our new CTE aerospace class to, and some others, but for the, we already comply with the ratios.
Good.
I just wanted to note that the proposed and the old, the class sizes are the same that are recommended when I looked at it. So the waiver is just if you have more students that want to be in what we used to call vocational, but now we call it CTE.
Yep.
If you need more, you're allowed to do that.
That's correct.
Okay. The class size has actually not changed in either the proposed or the current.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor? Thank you.
Item 15, policy revision, grading systems 4.600, also a first reading. TSBA has updated their model policy to reflect changes due to recent legislation, such as implementing a lottery scholarship day for our 8th graders. The lottery scholarship day, as we understand the new law, requires our schools with 8th graders to share information about the Tennessee lottery scholarships to all those parents as their children transition to high school. We have also brought updates to our policy and standard language and practice with this revision. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
Sir, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. To approve.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 16, policy revision, promotion and retention, 4.603, also a first reading. They being TSBA, has provided a recommendation for updates on this policy for changes during the past legislative session. 2 new state laws make further changes to promotion and retention. Public Chapter 829 allows parent and guardians to voluntarily retain their students in grade K through 2 if the student has a documented, and that's a key word in this law, documented academic or behavioral delay, and the parent guardian believes retention may benefit the student. Additionally, Public Chapter 989 creates a new promotion pathway to the 5th grade for students facing possible retention in the 4th grade. Under the new law, when certain students do not meet adequate growth on the ELA portion of the 4th grade TCAP test, a committee including the student's parent and guardian, ELA teacher, and principal will convene to determine whether the student will be promoted or retained. Each category of participants in the committee may make a recommendation to promote or retain the student. For example, if 2 parents attend the committee meeting, they still only get to contribute one of the 3 total recommendations. If at least 2 of the 3 committee members agree that the student is ready for the 5th grade, then that student may be promoted provided they participate in mandatory tutoring for the entirety of their 5th grade year. We recommend approval of the first reading.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Barker, is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Dr. Snow?
As we continue the marathon here in the policy area, item 17, policy revision, physical assault leave, 5.307, first reading. Previously, per state law, physical assault leave was only available to teachers. Public Chapter 839 expands this type of leave to include any employee who is absent from assigned duties as a result of a physical assault or other violent criminal acts committed in the course of their employment duties. There's also a notice requirement per Public Chapter 915 of the employee's right to report a physical assault to the appropriate law enforcement agency. TSBA has updated their model policy to reflect these changes, and they are reflected in this policy revision. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented, and seeing that school is about to start, we would also be amenable to you waiving second reading.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
I'd like to approve on first.
Is there a second?
I'll second
All right, is there a discussion?
I may revise my motion if that's acceptable here in just a minute, but I have a couple questions first. A portion of this new policy says employees shall be notified of their right to report a physical assault to the appropriate law enforcement agency. What leverage and what leeway do we have that would, in the course of their employment, if an employee is physically assaulted, can we require reporting to a law enforcement agency?
You know, I think that has to be an employee's decision. I don't think as an employer, we don't have the right to force them to file charges, just like we don't have the right to tell parents that they should file charges if their child is assaulted at school. We tell them they have the right to do so.
But this would be in the course of their employment, and if they're off work, we would be obligated to pay their salary at 100%. So it seems like that would give us some leeway and some leverage to require that.
I don't know, I'm not playing attorney tonight, so I don't know.
Mr. Townsend? You think so?
I'm not gonna play attorney tonight either.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, I hear you, Tim, I understand, but I don't think that'll.
Okay.
This policy does not pertain only to something that happens at work, though.
It's in the course of their employment,
Right.
Right, but it could happen on a weekend. And
if it's within the course of their employment, yeah.
Well, I think what she's saying is it could be in the course, have nothing to do with your employment. You're employed this week, it happened tonight, but you're not working.
Right. Isn't that, it's because it says, if you're just absent from your duties as a result of personal injury in the course of their employment. Oh, so it is only during their employment duties. Is it only while someone's on duty? Is that what this policy says?
Yeah, if they're performing responsibilities of their job, whether it's at a football game or wherever else, then if they're assaulted, then they have that right.
Okay, I guess I was thinking it was at any time, like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you were thinking the same time I was,
Yeah.
as long as you're employed. You're saying while they're performing their.
While they're performing their duties of their job. Yeah.
Duties of employment.
Yeah, this isn't an insurance question. It's a law enforcement question and security.
Are we required by law to report that if an assault happens on our property, even if the employee doesn't want?
Yeah, we do. We have to
So we
report
do
it.
report it.
So it's reported to law enforcement, but it's reported by the governmental entity, which would be us. And then also, the same way with a student, I know there's a difference between a student and an employee, but we report it to the authorities, but they also have a right to file charges as an employee who was assaulted.
Okay,
So it's going to the law enforcement, whether it goes once or whether it goes twice.
okay, that was what I was trying to get at, to make sure that there is a conduit of communication to the appropriate law enforcement agency that an assault did occur. And, whether a report or filing charges equal the same thing, I don't know. But that was my main concern, is just to make sure that a report had been filed.
Yeah, and this, as we said earlier, is available now to all employees, where before the law only pertained to teachers, certified employees, which that's the same thing. We file charges on assault from a district perspective on the person who committed the assault, and then it's always available to the teacher in prior years, but now to any employee to file their own assault charges.
Okay.
I think one thing that comes into play is if the district has no knowledge of it, you can't tell it happened. Sometimes people say, we need to file charges on my behalf. The school system might say, we're not gonna do that, but you have the right to do it yourself.
Are you considering,
Sticking with the motion.
To just approve on first, I'll retract if you'll retract your second. And, okay, thank you. And move that we pass on first and waive second reading.
Give a second, Kevin.
Since he's retracted, I'll retract mine, but I thought it did make sense to go 2 readings, but I'll definitely withdraw mine since we withdrew yours. So I guess he needs a second from somebody else.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We have any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Item 18, policy revision, drug and alcohol testing for employees, 5.403, first reading. As I said earlier, we were requesting to pass on first, waive second. Key Risk Insurers has provided updated guidance from the Tennessee Attorney General regarding drug testing, indicating that as a public entity, pre-employment and random drug testing has been deemed a possible violation of the Fourth Amendment rights of candidates for employment. Given this guidance, we are recommending these changes that limit pre-employment and random testing to required DOT positions only. These changes are reflected in the updates provided to you. Additionally, it has been confirmed that these changes will allow us to continue to qualify as a drug-free workplace and maintain our eligibility for the 5% discount on our workers' comp premium. We request the board, as I said earlier, to waive second and pass on first.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, waive second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Newman? Is there a discussion?
A possible violation of Fourth Amendment rights?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I mean, everything's a possible violation depending on how it's interpreted. I think that this is overreach into an area that has an appropriate place in a school setting for pre-employment and even random testing.
Well, not that we have to do what other neighboring, but it does sometimes could come down to whether or not we get an employee. But Ms. Duke has done some research, and there are no districts around us in Middle Tennessee, large or small, that have pre-employment drug tests.
I mean, I
So-
can't even work at Home Depot without a pre-employment drug test, so I would be not very willing to expose kids to
Is that
that.
the case now, for real? Like,
What? Pre-employment drug testing?
for Home Depot?
I use them as an example because I spend a lot of time there, and I see the signs. Home Depot and Lowe's and just about everywhere has pre-employment drug tests, yeah.
I believe in healthcare, they can do it, but they don't.
Are you saying that most of the districts around us already don't do this?
Correct.
So we've been doing it even though many people haven't?
Correct.
Yeah, and have we had any trouble because of our pre-employment drug screening?
I wish Ms. Duke was here. Dr. Essling, do you remember? I know you and Ms. Duke had several conversations.
Part of the struggle is the drug testing centers are only open 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., so to speak. I'm very difficult to get employees into those centers, and it takes a lot of time to get the results back once they do submit a sample. So it holds up the hiring process of an employee for several weeks sometimes. That is one effect of this policy. Once again, we still would do post-accident drug screening. We still do random testing on safety-sensitive positions such as CDLs. We still do pre-employment on safety-sensitive and CDL positions, and we also would do for-cause testing. If we have an observance of an individual that is behaving differently, we could still request that. So having those four categories of drug testing is what maintains our drug-free workplace discount with our workers' comp insurance. But
Additionally, each year our administrators, our leadership team go through a drug-free training where we go over the signs and what they should do if there is a possible suspicion or of someone that is using drugs in the workplace. So
I'll say this, I know what's on the table is to pass on first, waive second, and I understand the reason why we'd like to go ahead and do that. The law has changed, and it is now a violation to some people who are not in safety-sensitive positions. Only readiness I have is that could be more broad than just those with the CDLs, safety-sensitive positions. So if Dr. Snowden says that's where his comfort zone is, I'll go with him. But if we don't have to rush it, we could get some more advice as to, is that really the extent of it, just those who drive? But yeah, the law's definitely changed, and you can't do it if people are not in a safety-sensitive position. So, this is messy, but I'd feel more comfortable if we would not pass it all the way through, if we just maybe pass it tonight and had it read to us again a second time.
Is that going to slow up any of our new hires that we have going on right now, seeing as school's starting pretty soon? Do we know?
it could, but I mean, there's no guarantee that it would. The process is much slower, and if we don't have, if they're not ready, we'll put a substitute in there.
I hate to do that too.
Yeah.
So we can always pass it and then change our mind and alter that and increase it from just drivers. So I don't want to do that. I'm just going to pull mine readiness, and if we want to pass it, I'll go on board to pass it as well. But I would like us to get some more information if we could in terms of, is that really the extent, just the people that drive?
What do you say? I'm trying to remember. I don't understand your question.
Meaning that the only part of the law that's changed is you have to be in a safety-sensitive position. It doesn't say you could just do people that have CDLs, so there might be more people.
Right, and we do that. That's what Dr. Essling said. We do more than anybody that's in a safety-sensitive position. We have those pre-employment drug testing.
Okay, I think, all right, then I'm more comfortable. What I was hearing was something different, that we're just going to do that.
No. Okay. Who made the initial motion? Was it you?
I was the first or the second. Who was the first? You were? I may have been the first.
You made the motion.
I have Ms. Parker waiving the second reading,
Okay.
Okay.
And the second was,
and the second was council.
and the second was Townsend.
Are you comfortable being the
Are we
second?
there?
Kevin, are you?
Yes,
ready?
I'm comfortable.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Think-
What's the motion again?
Pass one first, waive second.
Okay.
All right. Other discussion? All in favor? Dr.
Thumbs
Snow?
up. Yeah.
Item 19, positive revision, substitute personnel, 5.701. This is the first reading. Public Chapter 735 requires that substitute teachers receive annual school safety training. We have a plan for all substitutes to receive the training. In the past, we have offered training to all subs during, as we said, in previous years. We have updated our model policy to include a provision on this requirement. We recommend approval of the first reading. This year, we'll have training for our subs in person, and those who are not hired as substitutes and who are here and can be in attendance of that training. Our carrier, our contractor, our partner, Staff EZ, is developing a video, and before those substitutes work, then they will have to go through the training by viewing the video. So we're offering it in person first, and if they cannot make it or someone's hired later as a sub, then they will have the video that they're required to review for that training. We recommend approval of the first reading.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve on first, waive second.
Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Parker. Is there a discussion?
Thank you very much for doing that, Dr. Snowden.
All in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 20, policy revision, qualifications and duties of the Director of Schools, 5.802. This is first reading. State law now requires the Director of Schools to report additional educator information to the State Board. Public Chapter 577 requires that a report be made if an educator has pleaded guilty, nolo contendere, or has been convicted or otherwise found guilty of certain offenses in another jurisdiction. Administration recommends approval of the first reading as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve on first, waive second.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Newman, second. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 21, policy revision, school admissions, 6.203, first reading. While state law already requires parents or guardians to provide information to the school district if their student has been adjudicated delinquent for certain offenses, Public Chapter 721 clarifies that principals may specifically request this information from parents or guardians. TSBA has provided language to update policies 6.203 and 6.318 to include this option. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented and the possibility of waiving second.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve on first, waive second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Barker, is there discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Item 22, policy revision, Code of Conduct 6.300. Public Chapter 882 requires that assaults on school property be immediately reported to law enforcement and the Director of Schools. TSBA has incorporated the modified language in Tier 4 to reflect this requirement. Additionally, Public Chapter 915 creates a separate category of assault for school discipline purposes. For example, it is distinct from aggravated assault or assault that results in bodily injury. Based on this change of state law, the list of offenses to clarify the distinct offense has been incorporated into this policy revision. We recommend approval of the first reading.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Mr. Stillings, is there a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
I'll second.
Mr. Townsell seconds. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 23, policy revision, zero tolerance offenses, 6.309, also a first reading. Public Chapter 882 modifies the current list of zero tolerance offenses in state law. Now, a threat assessment team will determine whether a threat of mass violence is valid before the offense can be classified as zero tolerance. TSBA has provided updated language in their model policy to align with this change, which has been incorporated with this revision. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Newman, is there a second?
And Wade second.
And Wade second? Okay.
I'll second that.
Ms. Bell, is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item number 24, policy revision, suspension, expulsion, remand, 6.316, also a first reading. TSBA has also modified policy 6.316 to specify that invalid threats of mass violence, for example, those determined by the threat assessment team to not be valid, can result in suspension. Additionally, Public Chapter 915 states if a student assaults an employee, the student can be suspended from attendance at school-sponsored activities for 1 year. As the new law does not define the term school-sponsored event, TSBA has included a suggested definition for the board's consideration. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented. And their definition just basically states that a school-sponsored event would be something where a student is not receiving a grade for a class that they're taking, which is pretty broad, but that was their definition.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve on first, Wade second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Townsell, is there a discussion?
I just had a question, because I know we have a threat assessment team, and talking to other districts, I'm sure they're hoping to have a threat assessment team, but do the Selby and the people that work on this team, they've looked at these policies as well and are all good with the way
Yeah.
they're written and things like that?
Yes, they have all reviewed those.
Okay.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is no other discussion? All in favor? Thank you, sir.
Item 25, policy revision, admission of suspended or expelled students, 6.318, first reading. While state law already requires parents or guardians to provide information to the school district if the student has been adjudicated delinquent for certain offenses, Public Chapter 721 clarifies that principals, again, may specifically request this information from parents or guardians. The SBA has provided the language to update these policies. We recommend approval of the first reading.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve and waive second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Bell, is there a discussion?
I just had a question, and I'm sorry, y'all, I did ask Dr. Snowden a bunch of my questions before. I just want to make sure on this one, the state law already said that the parents have to give this information to the school, but now we're clarifying that we can ask the parents for that information?
Yeah, if they don't
If they don't voluntarily give it,
volunteer that
okay.
information, if we have an idea that this is the case, then a principal can ask them, the parent or the guardian.
Which we were not allowed to ask before.
You know,
Now it makes it legal.
it makes it legal to ask. I mean, there are ways to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, we just pick up the phone and call the previous school. If we had suspicion that a child had been in trouble, student had been in trouble, especially serious trouble, there are ways to determine that without asking the parent. But now the parent, they can ask the parent, and the parent hopefully will be truthful. But if not, we can still find, there are ways to get information.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I made the motion to accept on first and waive second.
Okay.
And Ms. Bell, second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor?
Okay, next, number 26, policy revisions reporting child abuse, 6.409, first reading. Per Public Chapter 571, districts are required to report the names of the child abuse coordinator and the alternate child abuse coordinator to the Department of Children's Services. TSBA has updated their policy to align with this language. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
Sir, motion to approve.
Motion to approve on first and waive second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Bell, is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Item number 27, it's a new policy, Family Life Education, 4.213, also a first reading. Several changes to state law impact instruction on family life curriculum. Public Chapter 571 requires that information on internet crimes against children be incorporated in this instruction, that the name of the instructor be reported to the Department of Children's Services. Separately, Public Chapter 795 requires that family life curriculum that covers human growth, human development, or human sexuality include a video of fetal development. Finally, Public Chapter 970 prohibits instruction on topics related to sexual activity for students in grades K through 5. The administration recommends approval of the first reading as presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second that.
You were first.
I thought you made the motion.
No. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Tim, second. Ms. Bell, motion. Mr. Stilling, second. Discussion? All in favor?
Item number 28 is also a new policy, use of artificial intelligence programs, 4.214. It's also a first reading, since it's a new policy, obviously. Public Chapter 550 requires all boards to adopt a policy on the use of artificial intelligence for instructional and assignment purposes. TSBA has created a new model policy that covers this topic. As this is an emerging area of technology, TSBA recommends working closely with district staff to ensure implementation aligns with board policy. More updates to this policy may be forthcoming as this area of law and technology develops. We recommend approval of the first reading as presented.
Thank you, sir. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Barker, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Bell, is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
This is the one we've been looking to find. Item 29, new policy, opioid antagonist, 6.4052. First reading, Public Chapter 629 requires that opioid antagonists be stored in accordance with the manufacturer's instruction and states that school district staff may not prohibit individuals from possessing an opioid antagonist on school property or off-campus school events. TSBA has updated their model policy to reflect these changes, and we've added this policy based on legislation. We recommend approval of first reading as presented. If you didn't know what an opioid antagonist is, that's Narcan.
All right, thank you. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Stillings, is there a second?
I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second it if there wasn't
You
one.
don't even know what to...
No, I know. I was asked a question in the middle of
Oh,
it.
okay. Are you a second?
Yeah, if we're passing it, yes.
Stillings motion, Mr. Townsend second. Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you.
That's not what it's saying.
Moving on to the Director of Schools report. Opening day celebration and professional development will be August 1st after our opening day sessions. Last year, we heard from many teachers and other employees about missing everyone being together for our first day back. With that feedback, along with the reveal of the new marketing plan, which includes the new logo and naming reference, we're going to have one session that will be August 1st, 2024 at 8 a.m. at Rolling Hills Community Church Auditorium. That's 1810 Columbia Avenue. We certainly invite and hope that you will be able to attend. It's always a fun event, but we'll have the reveal of the opening day video. We'll also have a video with the voiceover regarding our branding and the new logo. So if you can only stay for a short time, we understand, but we certainly hope that you'll be able to attend. And then there's some other dates of conferences and other opportunities for you as far as professional learning. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence with all the policies. We apologize, but we didn't get these until TSBA sent them after our June board meeting, so there was no way to start with that. So it's usually one time a year that we inundate you with a large number of policies. So thank you for your indulgence.
All right, thank you, sir. Dr. Esselina.
Yes, sir. Your packet contains your monthly HR reports for your review, as well as the sales tax collection report reflecting the collections we received in July. July sales tax collection showed a 5.2% increase compared to the same period last fiscal year. We also finished up our fiscal year, the 23-24 fiscal year, with a 2.5% increase over last year's collections. We did meet our budget expectations for the sales tax collections revenue source.
The HR report wasn't in there, was it?
Personnel changes weren't. The personnel changes are in there.
Guess I scroll up here. Okay.
All right. Anything from the board?
I just wanted to mention that I'm happy to drive for fall district meeting. It's in Murfreesboro, on the other side of Murfreesboro. If anybody's interested, September 12th.
Any other reports from the board? If not, thank you. We are adjourned.
Sorry, Alicia.